A loving Sairam and a warm welcome to all my brothers and sisters of Zone 3. And I want to thank you for joining us this evening for the 8th webinar session under the Pre-World Conference webinar series. Today, we are fortunate to have with us a guest speaker by the name of Brother Tribhuvan Sachdev from India, who will be sharing with us on the topic of surrender, a very profound and relevant topic during this period of uncertainty and often a topic of discussions and deliberations in many of our study circles. In this context, before I proceed any further, I'd like to just introduce a bit of background on Brother. Brother Tribhuvan is an ardent devotee who attributes his everything to Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Brother has progressed as a humble instrument in the propagation of Lord Sai's message, which comes, quote unquote, love triumphant in a language sweet and tender, in his gentle service happily render. He completed his higher education at the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Prashanti Nilayam, from the year 1979 to 1985, graduation and post-graduation in commerce. He was the first batch of college students in Prashanti Nilayam. He came to Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba's fold at the age of 12. His father, Sri S.K. Sachdeva, was the state president of Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh of the Sri Sathya Sai Seva Organization from 1985 to 2010, a total of 25 years. His mother was a Bal Vikas Guru and a state spiritual wing coordinator. He hails from a family that's totally involved in Sathya Sai Baba's mission. As a Sai student, he had a good fortune of taking part in lead roles like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Suradas, in various plays directly directed by Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. And he has delivered lectures on various occasions before Bhagavan in Prashanti Mandir and hostel during his student days. With special directions from Bhagavan himself, he has served as a lecturer of commerce and management studies in the institute at Prashanti Nilayam for 2 years from 1985 to 87. He also had the fortune to have innumerable interviews with Swami. He was also a regular bhajan singer at the Prashanti Mandir in his student days and sang on various occasions before Bhagavan himself. Brother Tribhuvan was the district president of Indore of the Sathya Sai Organization for 6 years, from 2006 to 2012. He's a diploma holder on the Sri Sathya Sai Educare from the Institute of Sathya Sai Education, India. He has been invited to deliver lectures at the various Sai centers in Hong Kong, Detroit, San Francisco, and London. And he has also addressed students and the public of Madhya Pradesh in the 10-day summer camps on Indian culture and spirituality for 25 years. So with such a beautiful, introduction to my brother Tribhuvan, I'd like to hand over the floor to brother to deliver his topic on surrender, Sharana. Over to you, my dear brother, Sairam.
Om Shri Sai Ram. Offering my most prayerful salutations at the lotus feet of our most beloved Lord, Bhagwan Baba, who is there present with all of us at this very moment. Dear brothers and sisters, it indeed is a good fortune for me today to be present with all of you through this webinar and share a few thoughts on a subject which is not very difficult to understand, but a little difficult to follow, which is the concept of surrender. So before we move on and discuss a little bit about this topic, I might just give you a little bit of a background on this subject. Of late, in our state of Madhya Pradesh, we have been carrying out study circle meets on the Vahinis. And I had the good fortune of talking on the Prema Vahini. And as I was going through the Prema Vahini, I came across a chapter which described about bhakti, about devotion towards God. And there, Bhagwan was very kind enough to mention that in case if any devotee wishes to reach God, he can reach God through Navavidha Bhakti, which are the 9 paths of devotion which Bhagwan has given. And amongst the 9 paths of devotion, the last one which Bhagwan mentions is Atma Nivedanam, which is the path of surrender. So, when I was preparing for this chapter, I realized that it was Bhagwan's blessing that the subject of surrender has come onto my account to come and speak to all of you today about it. So, surrendering everything to Bhagwan, all our wishes, all our deeds, all our desires, let us go on to the journey on the concept of surrender. When we talk about surrender, we all say that we love God, we love Swami, we have faith in Him, we believe in Him. But do we really trust Him as much as we say we do? So I'll start with a small story which I'm reminded of, that there was this acrobat who used to eke out his living by doing these death-defying acts, by jumping across buildings, tying a rope in between 2 huge towers, and then going and balancing onto the rope and crossing in between the 2 towers. So on one such occasion, on the 20th floor of 2 huge buildings, he tied up a rope and he took a bamboo stick with him, and balancing on a tightrope balancing act, as they call it, he crossed from point A to point B. There were thousands of people who had gathered to see this death-defying act, and everybody cheered and clapped as he reached from point A to point B. Now, as he was to come back from point B to point A again, he called his younger son, his son who was barely about 6 or 7 years old, and he made him sit on his shoulders, and then he set out from one building to another again in that death-defying act. Now, all the people who are watching this show, they were sitting and standing with their bated breaths, hoping and praying that this man crosses that rope safely with his son on his shoulders. And as God would have it, no sooner did he reach the other building and the other end, everybody broke out in a great applause, and they all cheered him thoroughly. And the moment when he came down, everybody wanted to click pictures with him, take his autographs, take selfies, and everyone was praising him for that brilliant act of his. So then he asked a question: do you all have faith in my ability now that you've seen me cross the building A to B and B to A? Do you all have this faith that I can cross the buildings just on a rope? They all said, yes, sir, we have full faith in your ability. You can cross the buildings anytime you want. And what was more, you could even take the risk of making your child sit on top of your shoulders and bring him down from point B to point A, which was really, really great. So then he asked a question. Since all of you have full faith in my ability to cross the 2 buildings just on the piece of rope by merely balancing with a bamboo, how many of you can trust to put your child on my shoulder and see whether I can go from point A to point B again? Now, there was a huge silence. Even a pin which would have dropped could have been heard. Everyone had seen that marvelous feat of his. Everybody had faith in his ability to do it. Yet, no one had the trust to hand over their child to an unknown commodity and take him across the 2 buildings. This, I think, is the story of everybody. Give or take a little bit. We all have faith in God, but do we trust Him totally, completely, and fully? Do we understand His signs? Do we understand His signals? Is our surrender complete to Him? Is it what Bhagwan wants out of us? Or we are those people who believe in the philosophy of convenience? You know, this philosophy of convenience is very easy for everybody to follow. When it suits me, I follow it. When it doesn't suit me, I don't follow it. When God is kind to you, when circumstances are all rosy, when everything is going just the way as you would want it, you would probably, or I would probably portray myself as the greatest of devotees of God and praise Him highly and always tell Him how great He is, that He has blessed me and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and with His blessings I've been able to do it. But when the chips are down, how do we take God and how do we feel that He should have supported us? So these are a few questions which are bound to come when we talk about this feeling of surrender. When I sat down and thought about what I should be speaking today, so I jotted down a few points and I thought maybe we could discuss on these points on surrender. Now, if we want our surrender towards God to be full and complete, what should be the first step we should take? I have noted down 5 steps all of us could take on. So the first step which we could take is living in total awareness of God. Living in total awareness of God. Do we always live in total awareness of Swami? Do we always live in total awareness of God with us? Most of the times, yes, we do. But when it comes to doing anything wrong, when it comes to doing anything probably you may not want anyone else to see you do it, do you really live in this awareness of God? Now, somebody questioned Bhagavan once, Swami, how can I live in your total awareness always? When I come to Puttaparthi, I'm living in your awareness. Even when I go to my room, I know Bhagavan is watching me. When I come for darshans, even if you ignore me, you don't look at me, I know you have noticed me. When I'm sitting in the bhajan hall, even if you don't talk to me, I know you are watching me and I'm living in total awareness of God at that moment. But when I go back to my home, somewhere down the line, I lose that awareness of God watching over my shoulder. So what should I do so that I remember that God is watching me always and I live in that spirit that when God is watching, I can do no wrong. Can we afford to do anything wrong when we are in the presence of Bhagavan Himself? I don't think so. Any one of us is capable. Even though our monkey mind may think all kinds of thoughts, but when we are in the presence of God, when we are in presence of Swami, do you think even this monkey mind goes and takes liberties? I don't think so. Because we are enjoying the moment, we are in that ananda, we are in that bliss. So we don't have any problems, we don't have any difficulties. Our mind is not running helter and skelter, and we are at peace with ourselves. So when this devotee asked Swami that how must I live in total awareness of God, so Swami gave a very simple formula. I think most of us would be knowing it, but even at the sake of revising it for all of us, we should understand what was that formula which Swami gave. Swami told, if you want to live in total awareness of God, treat the picture in your room like God and stop treating God like a picture. What a beautiful way of summarizing the concept of surrender, Bhagavan. See, we all have pictures of Swami in our rooms, in our houses, at strategic places. Some of us may have placed them even in our bedrooms, in our puja rooms, in our living rooms, even in the kitchen, Swami having food, or Swami sitting on a dining table, or all kinds of pictures of Swami we may be having and bearing them with us. But Swami says, normally, when Swami's picture is placed in a room, you must not treat that God like a picture. You must not think that Swami is in a form of a picture. You must always understand that God is watching me. Swami is looking at me. Can I fight with my spouse in presence of Swami? Can I use harsh words for my children? Can I speak lies over the telephone? Can I take anything immoral in my thought process also when Swami is watching me? Swami says, when you start treating picture on the wall as God, as verily God, all your problems would disappear. The problem starts when you only treat God merely as a picture. Swami says, just treat me as watching over your shoulder and you will do no wrong. You will constantly live in this feeling that Swami is watching me. I'm reminded of a very small and a little funny anecdote when I was studying in the Sri Sathya Sai College in Puttaparthi. There was this friend of mine who had come down from Kenya, and he was also a student, though a little naughty student in the sense that he had not had too much of exposure for the Indian culture. And while we used to have our lunch and dinner in the dining hall, we used to all squat on the floor. And after that, we used to go down and go for darshans and bhajans. Again, we used to squat on the floor. This boy, for sitting on the bhajans, for Swami's darshans, he could sit on the floor for hours together. But whenever it came to sitting on the floor and having his food, bending down and eating rice and mixing it with the sambar and the dal, it was a little bit of a tricky stuff for him. So what he would do, he would quietly go down, be the first person whenever the bell for lunch or dinner would ring, fill up his plate with the food and quietly slip down and come onto his room, open the desktop of his cupboard, which was meant to be a study table, place his plate on the table and eat quietly sitting on the chair with a spoon, of course, because he couldn't eat with his fingers and with his bare hands. Then it was going on comfortably. Looking at him, lots of boys started trickling down and carrying their food into their rooms. And then the warden realized that there was a discipline problem. There were not enough number of boys wanting to sit in the dining hall and have their food. So he issued an order there that all the boys, as a discipline, would continuously sit on the floor in the dining hall and have their food there only, and defer from going inside their rooms and taking their plates inside and eating their lunch or dinner inside the rooms where they were living, except unless you are unwell. But this boy had difficulty in sitting down, and he was used to. And in between, it so happened that a few days ago, Swami, while delivering a discourse, told that you must live in total awareness of God and treat picture as God and not God as a picture. So he had a problem now. Now the warden says you must not go and open your table and sit, because he had Swami's picture right in his altar in the cupboard. And he realized that if he eats in presence of Swami, he's breaking the discipline of the hostel. So he thought, what should I do? But then he couldn't sit down and he was not comfortable doing it. So he continued sitting and coming into his room, sitting on his chair and table and eating. A few days went by. Swami called the warden of our hostel and he told, do you know there's this boy from Kenya? He said, yes, Swami. Do you know that in spite of your instructions, he's coming into his room every day and still having his food? At least once a day. If he has dinner downstairs, at least for lunch, he brings his plate and has it in the room. So the warden was taken aback. He said, no, Swami, I'm not aware. Swami said, what, warden? What are you doing? You are sitting in the hostel and you can't keep a check on these boys. And you know what is more he's doing? The other day I told that you must treat picture like God. So he sees at my picture, watching him have food. So to avoid Swami seeing him have his food, he's brought a neat and a clean towel and he places it on top of Swami's picture, so that Swami doesn't get to see him now, and without breaking any discipline, he can have his food. So this was his way of circumventing the discipline which was given, which Swami caught. And Swami told the warden. The warden next day went and promptly saw him that he had placed a very clean towel on Swami's picture and he was having his food grubbed very fast so that he could go down and keep his plate. And that very evening, Swami called him and lovingly cheered him and told him that, look, when you have realized this fact that I am live in that picture, do you think by merely putting a towel on the photograph, I will not be able to see through the towel? But I love the way you've done it. Look at that way of Bhagwan. For him, his children were everything. Even in the indiscipline they did, but there was that bhava, that feeling of bhakti. And Swami appreciated that. And Swami told him that from now on, you must follow the discipline And don't worry, if you practice enough to squat on the floor, you will be able to do that. After that, I remember this friend of mine, he never went to his room with the plate. He would always sit in the dining hall. And I think Swami taught him a very big lesson, that even if Swami's picture is there and Swami is watching you, merely putting a piece of cloth on the picture will not hide those divine eyes who can see from thousands of eyes, because he's verily in your heart. He's watching you as you talk, as you walk, as you laugh, as you smile. So living in total awareness of God. The second point, Swami says, surrender all your activities to God. If you want your surrender to be complete, surrender all your activities to God. Now, what happens to us? When I'm doing some work in the Sai organization, I take extra care that I should not go wrong. I spend lots of hours doing it precisely the way I ought to be doing it. And I say, no, this is Swami's work. This should not suffer. I must do it at the best of my ability. And if I'm working, let's say, in a government department, as it happens various times in India, that, there's the sense of answerability is very low in the government departments in India. And lots of people, they really do not carry out their activities with the same perfection as they would probably carry out their personal work. So Swami said, when I say surrender all your activities to God, that means whatever responsibility which you have been endowed with, do it to your best of ability. Do not cut corners. Do not take shortcuts. Offer all your activities which you do to God. You cannot bifurcate that this is my office work, so I will do it with utmost sincerity, and this is a Sai organization work. I don't need to do this as sincerely because I'm not going to get paid for it. But when I'm sitting in my office, I'm going to be talking to my clients, to various people. So they're going to be paying me. So I must ensure that I do this work to the best of my ability. And for all other works, it's okay if I cut corners here and there. No. Swami says you cannot define and you cannot divide as my work, Swami's work, his work, her work. No. Swami says you must treat all your activities as God and surrender them to God. And when you treat and surrender all your activities to God, you cannot cut corners. If you were to ask to offer something to Swami, let's say a fruit or a flower, would you offer a rotten flower or a rotten fruit at the lotus feet of Bhagwan? No. Even if you're doing puja, and in that puja or in that worship session, if you were to keep a flower, a rose has to be the most beautiful rose of your garden. If there is to be an apple, the best, shiniest, and the red apple has to be the best apple which you'd like to offer it to Bhagwan's picture also. So when you are going to offer things which are made by God himself to him only in the perfect way, so why can't all your activities which you do, you offer them as your prayer, as your offering to God? Again, I'm reminded of a very beautiful episode. Those of you who've been to Prashanti Nilayam, you must have noticed that every year, every month, various states from India, they come for carrying out the seva activities in Puttaparthi. And as they carry out seva activities, they take care of crowd management, canteen, security, running around the tractors, cars, groundwork, hospital duty. All the seva activities which are run in the ashram are carried on by these people. So I'm reminded of an Orissa group which had come once long back when I was a student there in Swami's college. And 2 or 3 of them were given the charge of taking care of a septic tank. Behind the hostel building, there was a septic tank. A septic tank is probably all the human waste which comes out. It flows into that septic tank and goes through the gutter onto the disposable unit, wherever it has to be sent. So 2 of them were given charge of taking care of the septic tank. So they were supposed to ensure that nobody goes near it, no animal falls into it, or if there is any emergency, there is a blockage or something. So they should immediately inform so that they come with the machine or the bamboos and clear it up so that the Puttaparthi drainage system goes unabated without any difficulty. On one such day, when these two guys were sincerely wearing their white clothes, that blue scarf, and standing there and doing their duty and remembering Swami, suddenly they realized as the duties changed, two new guys came in and they noticed that the septic tank was overflowing with human excreta waste and it was smelling very foul. It was a very bad sight to look at. Instead of going down through the drain, it was all flushing out. And one of the guys told the other guy, you go run, call for help. In the meantime, I'll try to see what I can do. Those were the days they were not having cellular phones. Nobody had the headphones. You had a landline. And those were far and few in Puttaparthi in the early 80s, that is. So one of the Sevadal guys, he started running towards the mandir to call help from the other Odisha group. And in the meantime, this guy realized that the flushing was so quick and fast that it was crossing that wall which was made, it was overflowing, and he couldn't do anything about it. So he suddenly realized that what would I do if I was in my own home, if some such thing had happened? He immediately folded his pants up to his knees, he folded his shirt right up to his arms, and saying Sai Ram, he jumped into that lake of human waste. And with his bare hands and a small bamboo stick which he had caught hold of, he went and cleared off the whole human waste with fast strokes of strength which he had. And you can imagine what an awful sight it must have been for you to go dive into the human waste. And as he came out with his waist full of human waste and excreta and all foul-smelling things, by which time 2 or 3 volunteers came in, but by which time he had cleared off the major thing and it had gradually started subsiding, but it was still flushing a little bit. So 2 or 3 people stuck in a big bamboo and frantically pushed it, and that whatever the blockage was there, it got opened and it got cleared. This man was asked to go and change and come back. No words were exchanged. Nobody was told in the ashram because there was no emergency. No manager in the ashram at that time. There was Kutum Rao Garu, Chiranjeev Rao Garu. Nobody was informed because this was an emergency which was created, which was resolved within half an hour or so. So everybody went about their way, and soon enough that 1 week or 10 days of seva was over. And those were the days when the Sevadal volunteers would sit in a row and wait for Bhagwan to come and give them Charan Sparsh, Pad Namaskar. Swami would give them that benediction of letting them touch his holy feet. And Swami would talk to them. Swami would give vibhuti with his own hands. There would be a person, mainly the state president, walking behind Swami with a basket full of sweets and vibhuti. And Swami would take his choice, give vibhuti to some, give sweets to some, and bless everybody. There would be devotees who would offer Swami a photograph to sign, and Swami would take photographs. Swami would accept letters. And I remember lots of devotees saying that we have been Bhagwan's devotees for 20 years, for 25 years, but we never had a chance for Swami to talk to us. But when we came for Seva, Swami spoke to us. Swami accepted our letters. Swami gave us Pad Namaskar. What great benediction. What love. Imagine when Swami says, you surrender all your activities to me. You are doing seva for my devotees. So Swami goes all out. These people used to be so full of emotion, just as I am getting. When I used to see them, they used to thank their stars that they were permitted to come for seva. And Swami used to give them this chance. And as Swami progressed, there was this hero of our story who was sitting there ever so calmly with a letter in his hand. And Swami moved towards him, and Swami accepted the letter, asked him, moved a little bit, picked up his robe, and told him, Chesko, told him, take Pad Namaskar. That fellow got up, fell at Swami's feet. Once, twice, thrice, Swami blessed him on his back. And then Swami called the state president and told him, do you know he's the hero of your group? And the state president was aghast. He didn't know why. Swami told. Swami said, do you know that there was this emergency there? And this man, without thinking, even once, he folded his pants and jumped into that mire. And with his own hands, he cleared off all the dirt. And why? Because he was surrendering this activity to Bhagwan. He wanted to say, face me, thinking that when I face Swami, Swami should not say that I have not done my duty totally and completely. And Swami said, this is the kind of Sevadal I am going to bless. And then Swami created Vibhuti, materialized Vibhuti, and blessed him. And Swami told him, my dear, if you continue to carry out Seva like this, you don't need anything else. I am going to grant you moksha. I'm going to give you liberation because of this one act of yours. That is how God looks at the feeling. Whenever it comes to your devotion, God doesn't see the amount of money you spend. God doesn't see the amount of work you do. God only wraps a tape around your heart and sees what is the feeling with which you did that. If the feeling is pure, you have surrendered that activity to Swami and done it. I think that is the best present anyone can give. This speaks miles and miles about the feeling of surrender a person could have by surrendering our activities to God. Now to the third path. We all have faith. As the story which I told you initially about the acrobat who would walk on the rope between the two buildings, we all have faith, but do we have confidence that when we pray, God would respond? Ask yourselves this question. We all have faith in Swami, but do we have the confidence that every time I pray to God, He will respond? I think when we talk of surrender, this is what we all need to develop. We need to develop this feeling that when I'm going to pray to God with all my heart, with the purity of my thoughts, He's going to respond. Sometimes we do pray to God, but God doesn't answer our prayers. And we say, oh, okay, maybe my devotion is not complete. Maybe I'm not doing it the right way. Maybe the time is not right. Maybe God is this, maybe God is that, maybe God is too busy. He's maybe, we give all kinds of reasons for not listening to God's voice. But then God has another way to say it. When He talks of surrender, again, I could probably explain it to you philosophically, but then I'll give you an example of how it could be worked out. There was this young boy who was a devotee of God. And he had this full faith that whenever I pray, God is going to answer my prayers. I don't need to fear anybody in this world. I don't need to worry about anything. And whatever I do, whatever I say, God is always going to be by my side. So one day he goes to a picnic onto a mountainous region. And there he wants to go on a mountain climbing. He sees there's a beautiful mountain full of lush green grass and there are trees everywhere. And being a rainy season as it is in India now, and everything was green, even the roadsides were green. He wanted to climb up to that small hillock which was there. But as he started proceeding, there was a warning signal. There was a board which was kept there. It said, slipping rocks, do not climb upstairs. Do not climb up. Now I realized, oh, this is meant for those people who do not have faith in God. I have faith in God. Even if I climb this hillock, nothing's going to happen to me. No rock is going to slip. And even if something slips, I don't need to worry. With that confidence, supreme confidence which he had, this boy kept on climbing up. And as luck would have it, he landed himself on a small rock which was loosely placed. And he thought it was a big rock. And as he placed his foot on it, the rock slipped. And as it slipped, along with it, he slipped. And as he started having a straight fall down, he could see death right in front of his eyes. The moment he realized that he's going to fall and have a bad fall, he started shouting for God. Oh, Om Shri Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram, please save me, God, please save me. And as you were saying, he had a free fall. He was going, somersaulting, tumbling around. And he knew that by the time he lands up, no single bone would be left. And he would be probably in a heap of bones lying on the floor. But he asked for God. And he kept on shouting for God. And suddenly he realized that as he was falling and he was about to hit the ground, suddenly his fall was broken by a tree trunk. He realized that he's got stuck into a tree. And he thanked his stars and he looked up and he said, "Oh God, I'm so thankful to you. I should not have done this foolish thing of climbing the rock. And I did that, but you saved me, God. I cried for your help, and you make sure that this tree comes and saves me. But Lord, it's becoming dark, and I can hear the howls of the jackals and a few animals. And what am I going to do stuck on this tree for the whole night? So, oh God, please save me." So, and his way of praying was, "Oh God, please save me, please save me." He kept on praying to God. And ultimately, after some time, God, who was sitting up on the sky, he realized that this fool will not understand. So there was an Akashvani. As they say, the voice of God was heard thundering and booming from the sky. This is an imaginary story I'm telling you, as an anecdote, how it would happen. So there was this Akashvani and the voice of God, just as God had spoken to Moses in the similar style, God spoke. And he said, "My child, do not worry. I am there to safeguard you as I had promised you. Do you want to go home safe and sound?" And he looked up and he said, "Oh my God, I cannot believe it. You are actually answering my prayer." He said, "Yes, my child, I'm very happy with you. Do you really want to go home in one piece?" He said, "Yes, God, I'm grateful to you. I'm so thankful to you that I was having a free fall and in came this tree in between and I was saved, but I can't see anything down. It's all pitch dark and I'm scared that if I fall from this tree or slip down from this tree, I might break my bones and I may not live. So God, please tell me, what should I do?" So God said, "Okay, have faith in me. Have trust in my word. Would you have trust in my word?" The boy said, "Yes, I have full trust in your words, God." He said, "Okay, then leave the branch of the tree now." The man looked up and held the branch ever so harder. He said, "What is it you're saying, God? You're asking me to leave this branch, which after my prayers you got in my hand. And if I leave this branch, I have a free fall. And God, I'm going to die. So please, God, can you give me an easier way out? Not this way, God." He prayed. And God said, "My child, I've spoken. Leave the branch and you will be safe. Trust me." Now this boy had doubts, self-doubts, huge self-doubts. He said, "Hey, who's that upstairs, man? Is it somebody playing a prank on me? Acting God? No, I can't leave this tree. If I leave this tree, I'm going to have a free fall." And he did not listen to the word of God. He kept on sticking to that tree, kept on holding to that branch, but he did not leave the tree. And the whole night, he kept on remembering God, kept on praying to God that, "God, please save me. Hope when morning comes, somebody comes and saves me." And when morning came, the whole night, he couldn't sleep because he was sitting perched up on a branch and he could see animals all around the tree. Kept on praying to God, kept on praying to God. Luckily for him, he survived the night. And as the sun grew up majestically in the eastern direction, as the light came by, he realized that the tree was barely 6 or 7 feet above a lurch in the mountain, which had a landing area. And had he left that tree, he would have landed up just about 6 or 7 feet down, which would not have been a bad fall at all because he was a tall guy, and he could have spent his night without any fear on the lurch, on that protruding part in the mountain. But because he did not listen to God, because he did not have a complete surrender in his words, he kept on sticking to the tree. Now God asks you a question in this. What if that lurch was not there? What that protruding part was not there? And if you had left that tree, what could have happened? Someone asked God, "God, this was a coincidence that there was a lurch, and maybe you planned it for him to give the tree. But what if there was no lurch, there was no protruding in the ground there, and what if he had left? So God answers to you in 2 lines. He said, my child, if you had left that tree, rest be assured, I would have been there to hold you in my arms. A. B. If I would not have held you in my arms, I would have given you wings as you fell down so that you could have flown and gone on to a safer place. So have word, have faith, have this firm conviction in the word of God. We all have faith in God, but then I think our surrender would be complete when we believe the word of God. And what is the word of God for all of us? Swami gives you a very simple way. Love all, serve all. The emphasis on the word all. You cannot say that I'm going to love only those who love me. I'm going to serve only those whom I like. And I'm going to serve only those whom I can get something out. Swami says, help ever, hurt never. Again, help ever. Forever you have to help. Hurt never. Under no circumstances should you hurt anybody. So I think there are many things which Swami has said. But in case if our surrender is complete, we must believe in his word. We must have faith in his word. And come what may, any kind of a difficulty, be ready to face that difficulty, because you know, when I was a student in Swami's college, in my cupboard, I had put in a saying. It said, God, there is nothing which you and I cannot achieve together. First you, then I. So God, there is nothing which you and I cannot achieve together. When you are there on my side, I will achieve anything in this world. That is the kind of surrender which God wants. So that will only happen when we have not only faith, but also the confidence that God would respond and we take care of his words. Quickly coming on to the 4th part of this point here. You know, in life, it so happens, Swami says, what is life? Swami says, life is bump and jump. Bump and jump. Life is like, you know, your ECG, your echocardiogram. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Swami says, when there's a straight line, it means you have nothing, your heart is not functioning. So life has to be up and down. Life has to have its bumps and jumps. You cannot go and always have a smooth sailing. So even if you are a devotee of Bhagwan, even if you have full faith in God, even if you think you are the best person, you are doing all things right, there are going to be times when things are not going to go right for you. So what do you do at that time? So Swami says, this is the 4th point which Swami discusses here. He says, accepting things which go wrong. We normally do not accept, or we find it difficult to accept the things which could have gone wrong with me. I may be the gift of God to this world, but then God is going to test me also as his devotee. There are going to be times when the whole world is going to be against me. People are going to blame you. People are going to probably shun you. People are going to criticize you for things which you may have done or you may not have done also. That is the test of God. So what do? You have to accept things which go wrong, which may go wrong. You must have that acceptance. And if you don't have that acceptance, Swami says, your surrender is not complete. And during those times when things are going wrong, you must remember God more. And when you remember him more, Swami says, when you think of me, I am thinking of you. Very clear dictum Swami said. I remember when we were students in Swami's college. So once Swami wrote a letter from Vrindavan when we were in Puttaparthi, and in which Swami said, I read your letters with lots of joy and a feeling of well-being with all of you. I'm very happy with your sadhana and the bhakti which you guys are doing. Remember, do not forget God even for a moment, because when you think of God, know that God is thinking of you. What a beautiful thing to say, that when I think of my Sai is thinking of me. And there he was sitting in Bangalore and he used to think of us. So what a better way to do life, to do with life. So I'm reminded of one more anecdote here. I'll quickly go through this anecdote here. I read this anecdote in the book of the famous American writer Phyllis Crystal, The Hand of God. In that, there was a chapter by name She. In that, she mentions that when she had come for the first time as an author to experience Bhagwan, to see him, she was sitting in the darshan lines and hoping that Bhagwan would talk to her. But it was a few days had passed away, and Swami had not had an opportunity to talk to her. And there she saw, as she was coming for the darshans, that a lady from America, an American lady, and a white lady it was, she got down from a cab, registered herself into the office, promptly got a room, and she saw her in the afternoon during the lunchtime. And in the afternoon darshans, as she was going, she saw that this lady got a line which was given the first row to come in. Those of you who've been to Puttaparthi would remember all the ladies and gents would come and sit in the lines, and there would be a draw. Any line which would get number one would be permitted to go in first. So the line which went in first, this lady, old lady who had come in from America, she was the first one to enter. And she saw that she got probably a fourth or fifth row to sit. And she was a little upset with this, that I saw this lady just come in and she's just barely shifted into her room. She's just checked in, and there, what good luck. So she's going to get in the front row, and she's holding a letter in her hands, and she's constantly, with the eyes closed, she's praying something. So she was watching this lady ever so carefully. And as luck would have it, Swami came in straight to this lady, picked her up for an interview, and took her inside. And Swami gave her an interview. She did not know what transpired in that interview. But the same evening, she saw that lady pack her luggage. Same evening, Swami called her for an interview. She came back to her room, packed her luggage, and she saw that after dinner, as she was going towards her room, she saw her sitting in a cab and leaving for Bangalore to take a flight probably back to America. And she was confused. This lady seemed like an American. She's come all this far away. She checked into a foreigner's accommodation office, and now she's going back and just coming back from America for just 3 or 4 hours. It seemed strange to her. But then the thought disappeared after some time. Then Swami called her, guided her, told her how she should be writing her books. And next year, when she came in again, promptly enough, she saw this lady was sitting there, and she was looking a little more hale and hearty. And again, in the same posture, straight with the hands folded, a letter in the hand, and praying to Baba. And Swami came, accepted that letter, and just blessed this lady, smiled at the author Phyllis Crystal, and walked his way. So Phyllis Crystal was a little amused that now that this lady is again, I must ask her, why did she come only for a few hours to Puttaparthi last year when I was here? So she was writing a book, and she wanted some good story also. So feeling that probably she could get a good story, she approached this lady and sought an interview with her. And that lady said, that old lady, she told the author, Mrs. Phyllis Crystal, that I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And the doctors, after treating me in the hospitals in America, they sent me home. They're saying, we can't do much for you now. You only have a few days left. So whomsoever you want to meet, call your children, call your loved ones, meet everybody you want to, and pray to God. And we hope that you have a quiet and a peaceful end, because this is the maximum we can do, and you can go home. So all she thought was that, let me go to Puttaparthi and pray to Swami and have his darshans as I'm going away. So she reached Puttaparthi, and with all those thoughts full of devotion and the pressure on her mind, the brain tumor playing, and the doctor's words that you have only a few days more to live, she went there. And Swami promptly called her for an interview. And when Swami granted her an interview, Swami said, do you want to live more and see Swami more? She broke down crying, and she fell at Swami's feet. And Swami said, you go back to America, but think of me and me alone. Think of me and me alone. When you do that, there'll be no tumor. I assure you. So this lady said, I came back to America, and as I was traveling, I kept on thinking of Swami, kept on thinking, kept on saying, Om Shri Sai Ram, Swami Sai Ram, Swami Sai Ram. I always used to keep Swami's pictures all around me in the home, while bathing, while eating, while sleeping, while moving around. It used to be only Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram everywhere, because Swami told, think of me and me alone, and this cancer will get cancelled. And sure enough, after 1 year, she said, you find me here. And that letter which Swami picked up from me today, it was a letter of thanks, because the doctors have confirmed before I came here that miraculously your tumor seems to have disappeared. We don't know how or how that brain tumor which was there, which was fatal, has disappeared. And she said, I have come because I have accepted that things may go wrong, but it is the grace of God which can set things right. So this is a lovely episode, a lovely event which tells the feeling of surrender. When Swami told her that you surrender yourself to me, just think of me and me alone, and no cancer can do anything to you. Probably, as Swami would say, cancer, cancel, and it was cancelled. That is the greatness of Swami. And on to the last point quickly, because I see time is running out. I've already taken a few minutes more. The last point is surrendering all your problems to God. Normally, when we have problems, you know what happens when there is a problem bothering us? It is sitting right on top of our heads. When the problem comes, we are constantly thinking of the problem. And we think, how do I solve it? How do I resolve it? And, Swami says, thinking of a problem is like sitting on a chair, on a rocking chair. It keeps you busy when you're thinking of the problem. So you keep on shifting, keep on moving, but you're really not reaching anywhere. You're not moving anywhere. You may be shifting on the rocking chair. It keeps you busy, but you're not going from point A to point B. You're stable, sitting on that place. So Swami says, whenever you are surrounded by problems in your life, surrender all your problems to God. Now, why do problems bother us? Swami says, why do problems trouble you? He says, problems trouble you because you are constantly thinking of those problems. You are constantly thinking of your problems. So take your mind off the problems. That's it, Swami, how do I take my mind off those problems? Swami said, I've given you a solution. Take your mind off your problems by doing japa, by doing bhajan, by doing meditation, by doing seva, by reading Sai literature. If you do any of these 5 things, I repeat, by doing japa, by doing bhajans, by doing meditation, by doing seva, or by reading Sai literature, or any good book for that matter, if you do any of these things, it will take your mind off the problem. And when your mind is off the problem, I come in. And when I move in, you have to be sure that the problem will be resolved, or I'll give you enough strength. Then Swami gives a very beautiful example. He says, you're going on a road and you meet with an accident and you break your arm and you are crying aloud, you are crying for help. A good Samaritan comes and picks you up from the road and takes you to the hospital. You look at the doctor and you are shouting at the top of your voice, the doctor, my arm is broken and I'm in so much of agony, so much of pain. Please do something, please do something. And the doctor comes and gives you a strong dose of morphine. He gives you a strong injection here. He says, the surgeon is going to come, he's going to take a while, he's another surgery, but till then I'm going to give you a strong dose of morphine. The moment he gives you morphine injection, Swami asks you, has the pain disappeared? So you say, yes, Swami, the pain is there, but I'm not feeling it. So Swami says, just as the morphine injection takes your mind off the pain and you know that the pain is there, but you're not feeling it. Similarly, when problems surround you, you think of me, you think of my grace, you think of my blessings. So I will ensure that the problem would be there, but you will not feel the pain. You will not feel the pressure. You will not feel the problem. And that time which is going in bumps and jumps, which is a bumpy time, that ride would also disappear. So I think I have taken more time than what I was allotted. But I'm thankful to all of you for patiently hearing out. Our concept of surrender can never be complete unless I think in my small way, these 5 activities, if we take in our lives, I'm sure our surrender would be total and complete to God. Jai Sai Ram.
Loving Sairam, brother, I have no words to thank you because I think you have absolutely covered it in such beautiful steps, And in fact, I had some questions from the audience and here, but there's nothing to ask because you have literally addressed every one of those aspects. So in that context, I just want to quickly summarize the 5 key points to say for the benefit of the audience. Step 1, living in total awareness of God. That is one of the prerequisites. Step 2, surrender all our activities to God. In the true sense of the word, complete surrender. Step 3, we all have faith. The question is, do we have that same confidence that Swami will respond? Very beautiful, beautiful statement. Step number 4, life will never be a straight line in the ECG, which is not good. It is full of bumps and jumps. The important factor here is accepting things as they go wrong. Okay? And think of Swami. The last step is beautiful, as you mentioned, surrendering all our problems to God and then leaving Him to resolve it and constantly thinking of Him. That is the morphine, the anesthetic that we'll have the pain, but we will not feel it. I think, brother, there's 5 points. I think you've just given us the formula and the tool that Swami would have asked us to do in all his various discourses. Thank you once again, brother, and I thank the audience for bearing with us through this wonderful discovery called sharing of some reflections and thoughts, dear brother Tribhuvan. And so you have given us the tool, what we need to do, especially towards the end, the japa, the meditation, the bhajans, the seva, and reading style literature. And this, I must say, dear and sisters, most of us, we are doing this. And hopefully with Swami's grace, that will be always there as the anecdote to the troubles and problems that will bombard our lives. We can't run away from that. But with our faith and total surrender or sharanam to Swami, he will be the guide and the guardian. With this,